Alright, hey guys, this is Burt from SoftTubes, and I'm back with another movie review. Today I will be reviewing Jordan Peele's second movie, Us, or US. Yeah, so this is a little bit late. I didn't get to see this one at any early screenings or anything, so unfortunately that's how it kind of worked out. So basically the way I'm going to run this is I'm going to start off sort of talking about it without any spoilers, and then we'll get into spoilers a bit later. And then I'll mark it up so you know when the spoilers are coming in case you haven't seen it, and then when you can kind of click to if you want to see my final thoughts, which probably won't be that much more, but it'll give you like my score and whatever. So anyway, let's just jump into this. So straight up I should say that I don't watch a lot of horror. Particularly horror that's based more around things like jump scares and really just trying to be horror. I don't know what it is. I mean, part of it is I don't like being scared, but then there are horror movies that have scared me that I like. So I don't know whether that's necessarily my turn off, but the films that I tend to like tend to be things like Mama, the newest It film, The Orphanage, and Get Out, Jordan Peele's first film. And for me, I think it's more, I like, personally, more psychological kind of horror, and just like things that are more suspenseful than necessarily straight up trying to scare you with monsters every 2 seconds. Like the monster horrors I like tend to be ones where you don't see the monster, and it's always just sort of off screen and stuff like that. That's kind of like that. Why I like the first Alien a bit, is there's a lot of that stuff going on, even though you do see it pretty frequently. So on that, I loved Peele's first film in Get Out. I thought it was really funny and clever and interesting, and it really like drew me in. It was upsetting the first time I went to go see it. I had it for an early screening, but I was like after a late like a long shift of work, and I ended up falling asleep and missing the start time. So I had to go see it at another early screening. But this was still ages after it came out in America. So I was lucky to not have stuff spoiled before I saw the film. And I love the way that movie specifically morphs into different horror films as it goes through. Like, you can watch it be like it starts as one and then it goes into another. And there's like lots of little horror tropes that kind of get used in clever ways, which I really enjoy. And I think, for me, Peele has a talent, kind of like Stephen King, in making ordinary things feel creepy. It's just like stuff around you, and I think to me that's the stuff that's scariest. Like when you have a horror movie, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head, but even like Alien kind of falls into that. But horror movies that are set in non-real places, like, oh, we're gonna set this in like it's in an abandoned hospital, or hospital can't make sense, but insane asylum or a military facility or something. Unless you're people that deal with that stuff often, for me, I find it less scary. When it's ordinary everyday stuff, that's when things get creepier, when it's set in a house and normal everyday things you see. And he does that well with this. Like, he makes escalators and rabbits and even the Beach Boys come off kind of creepy and unnerving. And that is really effective to me because it makes everyday life that little bit more unnerving, which makes it more effective as a creep factor. But that being said, it's not... He wanted to push that this was a horror movie. Most of the scary horror parts are very early in the film, and then later on it kind of gets a bit different. And I can't say too much right now because we're not on the spoilers yet, but it sort of shifts, not really shifts, it sort of flows into it. I guess there is kind of a big shift at one point in the film, but it's still got horror there, but it just seems like there's less like scares, and it's more just tension and atmosphere and stuff going on. And like on atmosphere, I love the music in this. Every single usage of music I feel was really, really well done. And there's even bits where the music's used to hint at things. There's one particular scene where it's like one song's used in one way and it goes to another song, and if you actually listen to the lyrics and watch what's happening on screen, you can see there's actually a correlation there. And it's interesting, since the song is a social political commentary, that there's obviously like some connection there that he's making. And I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff I missed too. Like there's a lot of typical horror creepy tunes with like a choir chanting type stuff that I feel like it's saying something, but I didn't get what. I kind of missed it. I feel like there's a lot I missed in this film in general. There's a lot of little stuff in this that are pretty easy to kind of slip by, as it were. And like, I guess getting onto it, like, the acting is probably the strongest part of this film. If nothing else, even if you like, because I've heard people don't like some parts of the story. Even if you don't like the story, I think you'll enjoy the acting. It's just really well done throughout the film. Like, Lupita is brilliant as always. She's a phenomenal actor, and she just continues doing that here. She's so perfect as our protagonist, and then antagonist as the Tethered, the others. And then, like, Winston Duke, another one from Black Panther, it was M'Baku, who I loved in that, and the little bit he was in Infinity War. I find him really interesting to watch on screen. Like, he really, like, has a way of keeping attention. He was awesome to me as kind of this flawed father figure. He's very fatherly, and there's a lot of father stuff about him. But they don't try to make him like a perfect father, but they also don't make him like a bad father. He's a good father, but he has flaws about him, and I think that's really, really good, and he does that so well. And he's also one of the big sources of, like, comedy, and it's not like over-the-top comedy, it's just little moments that are just really funny. It's really, really good. And, like, and another thing is that both kids are great, and that is so hard to do. Finding child actors who are good is actually really, really difficult, and it often, like, makes a movie fail. And here, and, like, I mean, especially in a horror movie getting a kid to be good is so damn hard. And here they're playing not only just the main roles, but also the villain roles. They are the monsters as well. And that is something that's so difficult. I applaud them for that. Like, they've done it so damn well. Moving on to other elements, like, I would, similar to how I kind of think Peele's got a bit of a skill like Stephen King, I think he's sort of similar to Edgar Wright as well, and doing a job of establishing elements to pay off down the road. And I think in a way, like, a lot of films, they're like, yeah, we're going to do payoff, and it's like, boom, here's an element, and boom, here's a payoff. And they're really obvious. He's a bit better at sort of tying things in. I was expecting there to be a lot of that stuff, so I was looking for it, and I was going like, okay, that line, that'll come back later somewhere, and that'll come back somewhere later. And some of it I didn't realize till I heard other people talk about it, and I'm like, that's what that line connected to, and stuff like that. But then he's also good at, like, basically setting stuff up to not pay off in the way you expect. And sometimes it's not even, like, successfully paid off, as you were. Like, it's not like the movie did a bad job of paying it off as much as it pays off in a way that, like, you might expect, like, oh, that element is going to be used in this way later, and then it doesn't work quite the way it's set up, because it's more real than that. It's not doing the movie route of, like, that set up, so that'll work. It's doing it a bit differently, and I thought that is really clever. And I mean, there are jump scare moments in this film. There's not a lot, and none of them really got me. Maybe because I was kind of ready for it. Jump scares tend to get me more in non-horror stuff, I've noticed. When it's like just a family-friendly, happy, fun movie, and then there's like a boom moment, that makes me jump because I'm not ready for it at all. When I'm sort of mentally prepared, they don't sort of get me as much. It could also be maybe they weren't that well set up to work in this, and maybe they weren't meant to, it's hard to say. But I, like, didn't mind. Every time they happened, I was like, cool, that's just another moment in the movie that's working for me, so it didn't have to make me jump to make it work. But the thing is, the movie only has a few of those. Mostly it relies on building tension, and then just building it and building it and building it. And then one of the things it'll either do, which I think is really clever, is it'll either cut it off really, really suddenly, and that's where you kind of, your big moments, like, scare comes from, or the other thing that's clever, and a lot of horror movies I find don't do these days, is it just keeps building and building into nothing. It doesn't, there's tension that doesn't necessarily lead to a payoff. And that makes everything less predictable. every time they start building, you don't expect there to necessarily be something happen. You're like, oh, this could be nothing, or it could be something. And it could be something bad or good. Like, it really helps make every scene a bit more tense overall by not making everything lead to, like, a lot of horror movies these days will build tension, but then it'll lead to a jump scare normally. And the jump scare will either be, there is a monster, or there isn't a monster. And those are the two sides. It's just one or the other. And it's just like, boom, and then you get these two options. And so every time you sort of get tension, you're expecting, alright, there's going to be a jump scare, and it'll either be a monster, or more likely it won't be a monster, because the monster will be like the second jump scare, or something like that. Like, that's a very common thing now. The fake out jump scare than the actual jump scare. But they don't build to nothing, which makes it predictable, where this kind of isn't that anymore. Another thing I really loved in this film, too, is the cinematography, and I love a movie when I love the cinematography. One of my favorite parts of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was some of those beautiful wide shots of just like a small figure in the frame. Like, I love that stuff. And this film has some amazing shots and really like just sit there kind of moments they don't sit there too long. They sit there just the right amount of time, at least for me. But one of my favorite shots in the film was in this, and it's one character in a real extreme close-up as the other one's in the background sort of moving in and about and stuff. And everything is in focus. It just looks so good. I freaking loved it. It's beautiful and it's creepy and it's just, I want to watch it again almost just for that shot. The stuff involved in that shot, like the actual story stuff, may not be absolutely amazing, but the shot alone kind of made up for it for me. So, yeah, it was kind of cool. So I guess I'm kind of like all a little bit all over the place. I'm sort of following a bit of a script here, but I guess now we'll get into spoilers. So yeah, just a warning. So now we're gonna get into spoilers. I'll leave a little should come up down the bottom somewhere that like, yep, this is the time to cut back in. Like, this is when you can come back in if you just want to see my little outro. If not, yeah, you can just like go like, all right, I got an idea what he liked. So we're getting into spoilers now. So this film has a few twists and turns throughout it, and it slowly builds into something greater than it first appears. So it's kind of weird watching it. So basically, the Tethered start off as these more like personal demons representing these darker sides of each person, only to grow into something more akin to like a zombie apocalypse by the end of the film. And that's one of the big sharp jumps in the film, is it suddenly like everyone's like, oh, why does this not work? Like, why are the phones all held up and all this sort of stuff? And then like, oh, hang on a minute, and they turn on the thing and like they're everywhere. These Tethered are everywhere killing people. And it's a bit of a jump that I kind of like and don't like at the same time. It has me a bit two ways on. But one thing I liked about the film, and I know some people disagree with this, is I thought it didn't explain too much. I thought it explained just enough for me. It gives just enough idea about how the Tethered came to be without wasting time on babble to explain too many specifics. And I know some people disagree, where they like, I wanted more or to explain nothing. And I saw a lot of people, at least that I, like these are ones I saw, there might be a lot of people that don't think this way, but the ones I saw were arguing that it was trying to be sci-fi. And that it was a science fiction film, and that's part of the reason it failed, because it was like, I'm science fiction, but then doesn't explain enough to fill in a lot of the holes, even though it has long chunks of exposition. Like that, my favorite shot, it's purely like a one shot for exposition, and that's part of where that shot does, like the actual scene doesn't necessarily work, because when it's just exposition, it kind of ruins the flow. But one of their things is that, yeah, it was trying to be sci-fi, where what I took from it, I don't think they ever said it was a scientific explanation for the Tethered. They just said in the film that the government created them to control everybody above ground, but it failed, so they just left them there. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all they said, is that the government created them. They're not like, oh, they're clones or they're this. Just that they were made, but they didn't have a soul, essentially. And so I took it like, it could be science, it could be magic, or it could be something darker. It could even be a combination of things. They don't actually explain what it is that makes them. And I think the film's better for that. Now, definitely some people disagree, and that's totally okay. Like, some people like more explanation of stuff, or no explanation or whatever. Like, this for me, it kind of explained what I wanted to know, making me want more, but happy if I never get it, essentially. Like, I don't need Us 2 to explain exactly how they were made. But I guess we should get into... The big plot twist is also one of my biggest gripes with this film. And that's that the trailers ruined it. So at the end of the film, it's revealed, and because of the trailers, I figured this out early. It's revealed that Lupita's main character of Adelaide is actually the Tethered, and that as a girl, she replaced the actual Adelaide. And so the actual Adelaide grew up down in the below area where all the Tethered lived. And that leads into some pretty dark implications, which are already dark implications about how the Tethered live, because there's lines of like, you got a loving husband or something along that line, and I didn't get a choice. And this man is basically forced upon her. And that's how the Tethered lived. And essentially it's kind of revealed that because the girls were swapped, it was why the Tethered were able to rise up. It's never really explained exactly how that works, just that that's the way it is. But there's hints of this twist in the film. There's probably more than I noticed. But one of the main things is, in the trailers, there was a shot. I mean, if you saw the trailers, you remember, it'll be probably playing backwards up there to try and avoid copyright. There's the two girls see each other, and one grabs the other around the throat and strangles it. The beginning of the film shows all the lead up of that. Her in the maze of mirrors and coming across the girl. But the girls are like, the other girls turned away from her. And then it cuts. The film just cuts to modern day. Oh no, it like cuts to the girl in therapy. And I went, hang on, wasn't there the shot of her grabbing her? Why would you cut that out there? Like, that would have been a good scare moment of like the girl turns and then boom, grabs her. And then I started going, oh, maybe it's because that gives away something. And then when the Tethered come in, Lupita's character has a voice that caused some controversy, apparently. But her voice is strained and forced, as though her throat is damaged. So clearly, when she strangled it, she damaged the throat, so it's the one with the damaged throat who was the real girl got put down in the underground. And that kind of sucked, because I sat for the movie going like, oh yeah, she's the Tethered. I kind of thought maybe they were going to do something where that wasn't the twist. They were going to kind of like red herring it, but they didn't. And then it's not like the film is ruined by knowing the twist. In fact, in some ways, some elements become more suspenseful, because you don't know. There's certain elements where she's like killing people, like killing the Tethered, and she's sort of really getting like guttural about it and animalistic. And you don't know if she's going to turn when you know that she's the Tethered. You're like, oh crap, is she going to like go full Tethered now? But she never does. It doesn't ruin things, but it does. It was kind of annoying to have that ruined by a trailer. Like, if I figured it out just from the movie, I would have been like, oh, cool. But because it was from the trailer, I'm like, it's kind of information to help me figure stuff out. There was something else I was going to say about that. And that was another point, like, people had issues with the swap and stuff, and some people didn't like it. But I think it made sense. It didn't need to explain absolutely everything. There's also, like, the end is kind of ambiguous. Like, there's definitely a lot of commentary going on here that I seem to understand. Like, I didn't understand all of it. There were some that when people said, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But there's still some people didn't seem to get it at all, where I took it as it's a reflection of society and the way we treat certain people in society. The film opens up with Hands Across America on a TV screen. It, like, sits on a TV screen and goes through ads, and one of them is Hands Across America. And when you're like, you watch that, and then at the end of the film, the Tethered, their big plan is to hold hands across America. And so, because that's the last thing that girl remembers, and the whole point of that was fixing homelessness and hunger around the world, and especially America. It didn't work. It was a whole thing. That's another issue. But that was the last thing she remembered. So in that girl's mind growing up, like, she didn't grow up with adult mentality. She just grew up in this dark world. So she doesn't grow up knowing that doesn't work. So her idea is, if we hold hands across America, everyone will have to, like, treat us nicely. Of course, they murder a bunch of people on the way, but that's kind of what I understood was, like, they were going to try this big grand thing that's not going to work. It didn't work the first time. Why the hell's it going to work when you just murdered a bunch of people? But she still technically has the mind of a kid. She didn't grow up getting taught morality, so she doesn't know that that's not going to work or why it's not going to work. She was just brought up in this brutal world where everyone is just doing what the above people are doing. So I kind of got that, and there was a little classism, and there's stuff like the escalator down into the world goes one way. It only goes down. So it's very hard to get up, which is kind of a reflection of the class system in Western society. It's very hard to build your way up if you're clever enough or you do the right dirty tricks and go around it. Like the proper path is up the escalator, but you can climb up the sides and stuff. It's still difficult because it's slippery, but you can make it. But it's far easier to go down that escalator and be forgotten about. So there's a lot of that, which I liked. There's obviously some people felt like it should have been more ingrained into it or shouldn't have been there at all. But, you know, it's one of those each their own kind of things. So I kind of enjoyed that about it. But, yeah. Basically, that's kind of the end of the spoilers. There's probably a lot more. I'm just trying to, like, get my thoughts on this film. I kind of want to see it again, and I probably will. Assuming there's not a lot of other stuff to watch coming out soon. So that'll be fun. And then I might have a better idea. So I might do a little top up maybe. If I see it again and any new thoughts or thoughts have changed, I'll probably do a little like bonus thing. I'm just like, yeah, okay, here's what's happened now. But that's kind of just my thoughts on it for now. So as I said, I don't typically like horror. But for me, Us proves what horror can do best. And it does that well. It's thought-provoking and it's atmospheric and it's clever. And I highly recommend giving it a watch. And I've seen people that didn't like it that were even like, still watch it. And I typically hold that opinion with a lot of stuff, even stuff I don't like. If people are like, oh, should I see it? I'll lay out the reasons I don't like it and then be like, but if you're interested, still go watch it. And even if you're not interested, like, still maybe give it a shot. Like, unless it's absolute garbage, like, this is a film that I feel like people will enjoy most of. Even if they don't like the ending or other elements, they'll still like most of it. So, it's still worth watching. So, for me, I give it 4.5 stars out of 5. And, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm hoping Jordan Peele goes on to do more unique, weird, original things. I'm loving that he's kind of, even though he's doing some stuff with actual IPs like Twilight Zone, and he's looking at doing the Gargoyles movie and stuff like that, that his own stuff, he's making things that matter to him and he wants to make. And they're making money. This is one of the most successful friggin' films in a long time. I think it's one of the most successful this year, if not the most successful. It's the 3rd most successful horror, or 2nd most, something like that. And it's like the most successful horror that isn't based on a franchise, and I think it's the most successful, one of the most successful movies that isn't based on a franchise or a known thing that's completely original. So that's really incredible. So anyway, guys, if you like this video, if you liked Us, leave a little like below. If you didn't, you can like hit dislike if you want. But like, let me know your own thoughts if you've seen it, or if you're keen to see it, if you're not keen to see it, and why. Let me know about it. And yeah, and hit that subscribe button. You'll get every review. I might be seeing Dumbo. It will be later than everyone else if I do it, but I'm kind of torn on it. I probably should do it just so I can do a review, but also there's not a lot about it that's making me want to see it. But we'll see. Well, if it happens, it'll probably come out Tuesday or Wednesday. So anyway, we'll figure that out. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Oh, shut up. Oh, man. Is that Over the Rainbow?
Sarah Bellows' book. The stories write themselves and it all comes alive.